Not here.
And let's do the invocation, the pledges. Dan? Heavenly Father, we come today as a assembled body. We humbly request that you bless our meeting, our community, our nation. Help us work together and for the common good. Guide us to be insightful and prudent with our intentions. Work through us to provide a spirit of welcome to all in attendance, engage in respectful and thoughtful dialogue. Thank you. The pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I the flag of the allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Any comments from the public? Okay, we have none. Consider an act on adjustments to or relief from specific charges imposed by the district.
I don't have any.
You have any?
None.
Okay, that was easy. So, on the consent agenda, before we begin that, I have a question for Eric. I think I know the answer.
Okay.
Item number 13 on the agenda. That's Fred Peterman's request. That I,
Except do you?
That's what he was working on, yes.
okay, so can we, he's not here. And,
When we get to that, what you would just do is, would the board like to
Okay.
defer, and you can call that out.
okay,
You
okay,
can do that at that time.
okay, great.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's talk about the agenda. Does anybody have anything they'd like to, move on to the, regular agenda? So I have a couple. I'd like to have the, financial report 6 and 7 to use the regular agenda. That's what my questions about that. So, you got any problem with that? So let's, we vote on the end, right?
You take a motion on the remaining items.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'd like to take a motion to approve item 5 and item 8. Anybody would like to make a motion? Second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and agenda passes. Okay, so, the items, 5, I'd like to bring up is on page 10 and 11. I know the answer to this, but for the benefit of everybody, so we have 2 pages in which we've given refunds for, homestead exemption. Is that typical?
Yes.
This year, we see this only during the year.
Yes,
So these are people that didn't file, and now they're filing to get an exemption, and they get a refund from us.
yes, it's a combination of the appraisal district implementing a new system, and they were behind on exemptions. So they're getting caught up, and people that late filed.
I can attest to that. Protest. I have. Yeah, they got a new system, and they have trouble. Okay, so, any questions? Questions about that one? And then the next one is the, tax collector. Set. And,
Which page?
18.
18?
18 is very.
find the page.
17.
We have,
Oh, yeah, look at this. It's 14, Eric.
so if you look on page, 15, and we have the summary of, tax collections. And it appears like Bud 46 is went up 7.8%. Is that, so basically all the appraised values for that.
This is your new 2024 certified values. And yes, they did go up, and we'll be going over that when we do the tax recommendation.
Item 10.
Yes, the appraisals went up.
Seven-
Yours went at
and
7.82. Yes.
So, let's make a motion to pass, 6 and 7. Have a motion to pass. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. So the next is, review the district's fiscal draft budget for 24-25.
All right.
I guess I've been up there.
Yes. So, before you, you have the draft budget and then a draft budget memo. And so we'll start, first page of the yellow at the top. Just so you know, the budget, we're not approving the budget, tonight. This is just presentation and then you'll approve it, next month. To point out the, part in yellow. So the next item on your agenda for the meeting is to go over the tax rate recommendations. The results of what's being recommended are in the yellow box. So that's taken into account as we go through this budget. And so, wanted to point that out. You can see that in the yellow box. As you recall, last year we did a water and sewer rate analysis on the retail side of things. And there was a rate adjustment last year. We're not proposing any rate adjustments on the retail side for WWA, for the customers. And then the rates from XDRA, which you've heard about the last several months, which is a slight reduction on water, on the wholesale water rate, and then no change on the sewer rate, and then a drop in the GRP. That's all incorporated into this as well. So all of those things you've heard are in this as well.
So there's no increase in water rates this year in 2026.
Correct. That's all. That's exactly right.
And one more question, the yellow box, the tax rate changes. So we kept within the 3.5, exactly at 3.5.
For what? Copies?
Do you not have them?
I don't know.
Yeah. All right. If we'll turn our attention to the other side of the report and go into the tan area, that's where the juicy stuff is. No pun intended. Want to talk about a couple line items that are kind of outliers from budget wise. And just to get your bearings on what you're seeing here, if you look at the blue column, so that the blue column is the projected actuals for this year. Now, granted, we're still short. We're not done with the actuals. But if you look to the right of that column is the current budget, and to the left of it is the proposed budget. So when I look at it, you look at a couple outliers. I wanted to point out a couple things for you. First is water service maintenance 5,300.06. You'll see that last year's budget was 3,000. This year's budget 73,000. So what that is in relation to is your larger diameter water meters. And 46 so you have 14 meters in your district that are classified as large diameter, over 3-inch diameter. We are proposing to replace 9 of them from the existing mechanical old compound meters to the meters that are the ultrasonics like you have in the rest of the residential area. So a few years ago, all of the Woodlands converted to the AMI ultrasonic meters on the residential side. At that time, 3 and 4 inches were not available, number one, and number two, for cost saving purposes, they focused on the smaller diameter. So now we're looking to start updating those as well because they're becoming obsolete. And so there's a total of 14, and we're proposing to do 9, which 9 is the 3 and 4 inch meters. Now you may have 6, 8, 10. You may have some bigger ones, but for budgetary purposes, we're just looking at the 9. They're doing the 3 and 4s.
5 left there, about 4.
Correct. There are some districts that have asked what would the numbers be if we did them all, but that's up to you. We're just proposing right now to do the 3 and 4. You can see what threes and fours costs. I can tell you that when you go up in diameter, the cost goes exponentially as far as the actual material cost for the meter. So that's one line item that has kind of changed. One that's gone down a little bit, is 5309, and that is sanitary sewer rehabilitation. We completed some, project for the sanitary sewer rehab, this year. And then, but there's still some to do the, next year. So we put, if you recall, there was a analysis done a few years ago that identified the conditioning of your sanitary sewer pipes. So it identified cracks, it identified manholes that were deteriorated because sewer gases eat that stuff. And so this year you finished, but it was broken up into 3 phases. We finished construction in phase 1 this year. So you spent a little bit, all the muds had a little piece or most of them. And so this year proposed for that, 187 is to get into phase 2 and start phase 3 design. So that's what that item is. So it's smaller than last year, but it's still to continue finishing that up.
Spent
91, spent what?
but it wasn't the budget, 236.
Budget was 236, you spent 91, right? Just in phase 1,
Basically,
but it also had phase 2 in which we didn't get to.
you can get to.
Right.
So
It's awaiting approvals right now. Yeah. So we pushed it forward. That's right. The other item to point out is 5314 storm sewer repair. You see, that's actually going down a little bit. Recall you had a major collapse this year that we fixed. What we're doing across all of the woodlands is putting in, so 2 things. We're going through an audit of all of the ditches and all of the piping along the lines of that CMP that broke. And doing an audit across the woodlands and all the muds to identify how many of those we have, where they are, what the condition is, what, have we already fixed it? You know, 'cause we'll fix it with a different material and do an assessment. That assessment and data will go into our asset management and GIS programming. And from there, we'll be able to build a capital improvement plan that'll help us better project what we need to do, whether it's exactly. I want to get out ahead of it because as you experienced, that one cost 40 some odd $1,000. If we did it in a grouping and it wasn't on an emergency basis, it's probably in the 20s or even less. And so we put one more major repair in the budget this year. That's about 25,000. So, but we won't know what the full effect is until we get done with that audit. So
And that's at 54.
correct.
Plus the.
That's correct.
That's
Yeah. And the reason your number is elevated this year is because of that big one on the actual. The other thing that we look at very closely on these budgets is the green box down at the bottom. That green box shows you the amount of months of reserves against your budget that you have. What we should have is in upwards of 12 to 16 months. So you can see where we are. We're for a district this healthy and big, we should be in better situation. But what we're trying to do, and you are handcuffed with legislation that only allows you to increase your revenue from last year at 3.5%. So you can't really change that too much, you know, as time goes on. What we're trying to do is get to the point where you have a little bit better reserves so you can handle some of these infrastructure projects that are coming down the pipe. 12 to 16. AWD recommends 16 to 24. However, most districts will have their own mechanical infrastructure to deal with. You don't have
We
that.
don't have,
You have water pipes, sewer pipes, ditches, and ditch pipe.
no moving equipment.
Correct. No mechanical.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm kind of downgrading, you know, the goal from 24 months to 12 to 16. So that's, you can see where you are. Our goal would be to try to slowly get that, move that up a little bit.
So there is a possibility that may go up a little bit with the $700,000 that we got back. But you true up the end of the year, it may improve.
That's already built in. It was at the $707,000 credit. You can see that on page 5 of your financials. It's in other revenue.
I thought we might see that at the.
No, it's already in there. It's correct.
So that's what took it from, you were, what, 3.1 last time,
Mhm.
6.
Correct.
That's right.
Now, on the flip side, I just went through some of those expenses. So ideally, what we want to do is get the work done that we need to get done while still trying to grow that. Because that's what the reserve is for, is to do those kinds of projects. So as long as we're continuing to start moving, upwards and still get those projects done that we need to deal with. I just want to get ahead. I'm worried about the ditch piping.
Is it possible to check the goal for next year?
This is,
That's our goal.
I mean, that would be this. That's the goal. And that's based on the income. Now, there are other factors. If we have a wet year, that's less revenue. And that does affect us. So, if we have a dry year, it could be good. We sell more water, I don't hope for one or the other, but the reality is it is what it is, I guess the point is. And then obviously, what I want to get better control of is those bumps in the night, like that ditch, repair that we had to deal with.
Don't you think you'll have that,
By the end of the year, I'll say hopefully in the fall. I think the data will have,
or this fall?
yes,
Okay.
I'm hopeful that I'll have the data this fall and that I can then develop out that CIP by the end of the year. And I don't suggest we go and modify the budget, but what I think we can do is look at what we're up against and start thinking about a plan to attack it in years to come budgets. And that's what probably how we'll attack it. And if there's any, immediate sinkholes that we found, we'll probably have to address those. Get away. So that's kind of the quick summary of everything. Might be a good time, or if you've got any questions, by all means, might be a good time to shift over to the tax recommendation. That kind of goes along with this.
So we completed item 9, we're gonna do item 10 now. So, bond seller.
Haven't heard it that way, but
Bonds.
page 18 starts a memo followed by 2 charts. And I'll start with the tax rate setting process is a 2-step process. So all you're doing today is authorizing publication of your total tax rate. Next month, you'll actually have a public hearing and then you'll adopt and levy the tax rate, then break it out between maintenance operations and debt service. So you always want to consider publishing the highest rate you'll consider. You can always come down from it next month. You just can't go up without republishing. So all that being said, if you look on that memo, assumption number 1, the 2024 net taxable value that's as of January 1 came in at 4.7 billion. It's a 7.82% increase over last year's 4.4 billion. Beyond that, you can see a few of our other assumptions. We assume 98% tax collections, no growth beyond that January 1 certified value. You can see your debt service fund balance as of June 30th. Interest earnings, we assume 2%. You're currently getting somewhere around 5.3%, but close to 2 years ago, you were getting next to nothing. So
That only yields,
Yeah.
50,000.
yeah, it's not that significant at this point. So all that being said, if you flip to the next page, this is your debt service cash flow. And I'll run through, since it's your first time, I'll run through every column really quickly. And you can see in that first column, your debt gets paid off in 2030. But year ending, you're always collecting taxes in arrears, so keep that in mind. So that first line, 2024, is your last year's levy, your 23 levy. You're just collecting those dollars in 24. The next column is just your fund balance year over year. Next column would just be that interest earnings year over year on that fund balance. Next 2 columns are blank. The next column, prior year AV, that first line item, 4.4 billion, is your 23 certified, and then the 4.75 billion is your 24 certified. Next column is just the percentage increase year over year. The next column would be the tax rate that's necessary to pay your outstanding principal and interest. Last year, you had a 16-cent debt service tax rate. This year, we're proposing a 15-cent debt service tax rate. Next column, tax collections based on that value, the tax rate and 98% collections. The next column, total funds available, that would be your collections plus your fund balance. The next two columns are the same because you're not issuing or considering to issue any new debt, but that is your outstanding principal and interest that's remaining on the bonds that are outstanding. Second from the right, your ending fund balance every year after you make the principal and interest payments. And then all the way to your right, your debt service coverage. TCEQ requires we maintain a minimum of 25% coverage of your following year's debt service. So the only reason that is red, the 25.883, is we just have it stand out if it goes below 30%. But there's no issue there.
And but if you point out that the following year, the bonds are paid off.
Correct.
We're left with $180,000 to get back.
Correct. Yeah, and what we would do ultimately in that last year is you'll levy just enough. And usually we do a slight shortfall, and then you ultimately just transfer money from your maintenance operations to cover the shortfall. And so that way you end up with a zero-sum game, and you don't want it. And that's a good point that I should make is maintenance operations dollars in your operating account can be used for anything you see fit on behalf of the district. The debt service funds have to be pledged to outstanding bonds. So you can always move money from maintenance operations into debt service. You can't move dollars out of debt service. So just keep that in mind.
But you can pay debt out of M&O, and you could
Correct.
move debt service pennies over to M&O to increase your flexibility while still paying off your debt service. Right?
In a given year,
Yeah, you could,
if you could transfer pennies, yeah, I mean,
if you could.
yes. You're restricted now with
Yeah, not this
the new laws, but yeah, so if you flip to the next page right here,
Let me point out one thing. So if you look at this column called prior year AD, so the way they work this is they don't project increases in evaluations.
Right.
So that's most likely will go up. I mean, it could go down, things got really bad.
Right.
So if you look at this,
yeah, so, you know, what we try to do with respect to the tax rate, keep it on your debt side flat or descending because you don't want your tax rate to go up and down in a given year. And then, as David said, we don't assume any appreciation. Really, what you're looking at is the next year. So you're looking at making sure you have coverage in the next year, and then beyond that, assuming that everything stays flat, that you can still cover, like David mentioned. So it is a conservative look at it. Because we don't have the luxury of being able to consider the appreciation side of things. But if you flip to the next page, this is probably some of the most informative information for you. The top box, with respect to your maintenance and operations side of your tax rate, last year you levied 2.7287 cents, which generated just under 1.2 million. This year, the proposed rate is 3.1255, which would generate about 1.45 million. The parity rate, if you wanted to raise the same number of dollars you did last year, would need to be about 2.53 cents. And then currently you need 0.25 cents to balance your current budget. Then if you look at the bottom line, the value of a penny in your district is about $466,000. So it's pretty significant. Middle box with respect to the tax bill. Last year's average homestead value, $546,547, meaning the average tax bill was $1,024. This year it went up to $584,497, meaning the average tax bill is $1,059 this year, for a $35 increase. So that's 3.5% increase. And if you look at the value increase from the 546 to 584, that's a 6.94% increase year over year on the average homestead.
like all districts,
Yeah, between the 546, 547 and the 584, 497, it's a 6.94%. And that'll be different, David, from the actual taxable value because this average homestead calculation is based just on homesteaded properties. So properties that don't have homestead, that they're rental properties or anything like that, that will skew the taxable value because they're not restricted to a homestead. This is just on homesteaded properties.
People getting homestead, I have homestead exemption.
Right, correct.
Right. If anybody that doesn't have homestead.
Well.
Oh, you'd be surprised. Yeah.
I thought that.
They may have two homes.
No,
Yeah.
only your primary residence.
Only primary residence. So what was this talk about? They allow, like, they broadened scope for everything under 5 million.
That was.
That's the circuit breaker.
The circuit breaker for commercial.
Commercial. That did not include rental properties.
Yes,
Yes.
it does include rental property,
It does,
residential,
but it's capped at
by 20%.
20.
It's capped at 20%,
So it's capped at 20%. Based on the duty.
which is included in your total. If you had any certified value, I mean, if you had any circuit breakers in your certified, it's already included in there. As well as your regular homestead exemption is included in your certified totals.
It's already baked into that 7.whatever%.
Right.
Yeah, I already packaged.
Right.
So all that being said, and you know, the percentage change of 3.5% is specific. Senate Bill 2, which came out, it was approved in 2019. Had the districts had to have a designation. You are designated as a developed district, meaning that at least 95% of your infrastructure to serve your property has been constructed and financed. So if you go beyond the 3.5%, you're subject to a mandatory rollback election. And so we don't want to go above that. And so if you look at that bottom box, all the way at the bottom, your rollback rate, if you went beyond the 3.5% and the election failed, then you would be rolled back to a 2.64 M&O rate, where our proposed rate is 3.1255 cents. So it's about a $220,000 decrease. So all that being said, and as I mentioned, you're just publishing this month or authorizing publication this month. Next month is when you'll actually hold your public hearing and you'll adopt the tax rate to break it out. But our recommendation would be to publish the 18.1255 cents and then make a determination next one.
So we're basically the budget, collecting a little more than 200,000 more in M&O.
So we're basically doing the best again, under the legal requirements to build our reserve. And if we're able to duplicate what's anticipated for this year and get us 3.8 or 3.6, if we do that for around 4 more years, then we'll get to where you want to get it close to 4 months.
Yeah.
We need to rinse and repeat 4 more times.
Yeah.
What happens if we don't have this increase of $37 per household? Sorry, I'm reading this.
It reduces, if you don't do that, then it reduces your bottom line surplus on your budget. That reduces your reserve at the end of the year.
All right, so if we don't maintain the same base of everything that we have,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah, the budget that you were presented with, assuming that you would
Already got it.
adopt the tax, or adopt the tax rate that's recommended, so that you would build your reserve 3 to 6 months. If you go lower than that, then you're going to have a reserve.
But if you look at the total cash available, that's the end, that's right. Gonna have like $3 billion.
That's projected. That's it.
Anything else?
So as Al mentioned,
We need to publish.
that process, we can make a motion to publish it. That's the newspaper of general circulation.
I'd like to have someone make a motion, exactly what Ryan said.
I don't have that much.
seconded. Call for the vote, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
No, it's just published once.
Published once, it can't be any less than 3 days, then no more than 7. So I'm gonna send them, they're gonna come out on the 12th of September, and your meeting is the 18th. Yeah,
Which paper?
Courier.
Thanks, I'm mostly revenue.
Well, I'll be doing another meeting, it's Black Friday for the newspaper, for everybody, all the facts. Published notice.
Yeah, they've been doing some great journalism lately, so.
Yeah, well, it's about the revenue.
Yeah.
Big revenue.
They lost all the car dealers.
No less than 3, no more than 7. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so, let's move on to, item 11. That's Jerry.
Good evening. In your packet, page starting on 21 is our monthly report. There's no change from what was submitted in your packet. I would like to call attention to page 40. That, we need to update the information. The most recent report is 8/7/24. And the percent complete at the far right bottom, 9.89%. And then if you go to the chart and note where it says phase 1 ESA, that is now 50% complete. And the next column to the right, meets and bounds, is 75% complete.
You, this is,
Land acquisition for the,
so what's the first column is 16.4?
I'm sorry, where?
Where you said 7.89, is that the,
Down at the bottom, very bottom right-hand corner,
oh, I see 6 point,
that is now 9.89.
anything else?
And we're still focusing on the tracks that are outlined in, that are colored in blue. We have not done any appraisals, and we have not presented any offers to any property. So we're still in the throes of working. From page 41 through 45, there is some static water information on the wells that we have here in the Woodland. And don't focus on the individual multicolored line. Look at the trend of, it went up during a period of 2015 to 2020, and then our static water levels are trending downward to be both the Evangeline and the Dr. Jasper aquifers right now.
And your assessment of why that's happening?
One, there's more groundwater being pumped by everybody, and there are a lot of wells outside of the Woodlands, and more being permitted on a month of that.
All the road use going outside of it. And the population went up 4%.
Yeah. And then my final thing on page 46 is a maintenance report for Bear Branch. So you know what's been taking place during the month of July.
And then I have, one question I was wondering if you could discuss with us on page 38.
Sure. Or I will try. Yes, sir.
So you have these, this is your progress plan.
For the condition assessment.
So how's that going?
If you look at it, we're 27% complete. We've used about 9% of the time and materials money, not to exceed money, and then we've used about 43%. You can see where the funds have been spent to date. We've gotten a little bit of information in. There's been no testing done. There's no destructive testing,
Non-destructive testing, right?
and so we should be able to have you information in the next 60 days. What kind of results we've gotten.
And you're doing both AC and PVC,
Mainly AC.
main AC? And is, the type of, I think it's, you use this acoustic testing by Kedway?
Yeah.
Is that the tool you're using?
Yes. And that's, if you look at where it says coming activities for August, says Kenway Vibro acoustic inspection scheduled for 8/26 through 8/30. We're gonna do about 1.5 miles of pipe.
And where that might have?
I can't say that, I don't know.
You know, okay. Could I get a copy of the, draft additional assessment plan, phase one?
When we're ready to release that,
What do you think that'll be?
60 days.
Okay, it's. Anything else?
No, sir, unless y'all have questions. Other questions?
Are private wells allowed in the woodlands?
Ask Mr.
I think only on drainage, yeah, irrigation, they have to meet a certain size. I think it's 1.5 acres.
1.5 acres. And who has to approve it is your county commissioner. I almost bought a house that, bought that. And that's only for irrigation. For drinking, it's a different story.
Yeah, that's not allowed.
But they don't want the cross connection between,
Sewer water.
No, not that, I'm talking about size. Qualified.
yes.
See, most of the people who drill the wells also have septic down. And they want to keep it separate. That's described in 1.5 units. Right, so, number 12, the ranch.
Well, I'll cover that. So, since the last meeting, we have, I've contacted, consultant LJO for their branch, and the branch project, as well as SRA, project on behalf of districts, about the need to contact the Texas Water Development Board about what's now anticipated to be a delay in the project construction timeframe that was included with the grant agreement between 67 and the Water Development Board, as well as the change in the project budget and the possibility that there may not be sufficient funds to be able to complete the project. So, OJ, we are working to put together that response, but there are some discussions about the modifications to the scope of the project, ultimate costs that need to get worked out before we know what to tell the water development. So Eric's doing everybody.
Yeah, so I passed around just a summary of where all the funds came from. Those are funds that are in the bank right now. It doesn't include the interest that has grown on that, so there's a couple $100,000 of interest that is grown on that. But this was the original kind of buy-in, and so 167 did their share through a bond application or a bond issue, Texas Water Development. So that's that top one, 6.55, and then the rest of the stakeholder MUDs put in a cash share in the pro ratas in the box below, meeting that $4 million, with Metro being not necessarily a water contributing partner. So they don't have any land that contributes water to the drainage situation, but they, as a good neighbor, decided to put in $1 million. That reduced everybody's share in that box. Just to give you an update on where we are with that project, in June, the engineer came here and presented kind of where we were, and where we were was models complete. And it does look like the modeling of the option that was projected, which was to build 2 detention ponds and then clear out Bear and Panther branches to speed up the water and then capture it in the detention ponds and release it, which does meet the goals that project was originally trying to meet, which was to reduce the high water mark on Research Forest in those big rains to about 2 feet, so that consumers or residents, as well as emergency vehicles, could actually get through that corridor. It would also have, in the surrounding areas on both sides of Research, it would also lower the water along those streets within the subdivision. So it it was proven through the model that that option does work. However, we learned that the cost estimate was higher than this summary, than this funds. And so there was a couple different options kind of floated around with MUD 67. And the other districts one was, well, let's just go see if we can find the money somewhere with the state or federal, and see if there's any funding there to bridge that gap. The other idea was to possibly run some additional scenarios now that the model's been built to see if maybe there's a cheaper option somewhere. Maybe we dig out somewhere else and it still has the same effect. So I set up a meeting with state legislators, federal legislator, Representative Toth and Congressman Crenshaw. We're in attendance. Crenshaw's the staff member and Steve Toth were in attendance at the meeting, township representation, and then several MUD stakeholder directors were there to basically the intention was to educate and update those legislators on the project itself, what it does, where we are, where we came from, why, all that stuff. And then we talked a little bit about the money itself, the fact that we're a little short, at least with the recent cost estimates. So I guess in summary, there didn't appear to be any big pot of money available per se. There was some ideas from the legislators on maybe we could get at it a little bit here and there, but it didn't appear that there was any real easy path to go to get the delta. And so there was a lot of discussion about now that the model's been complete, that maybe we run, some different scenarios to see if there's some other options. And so that's where we left that. There were no decisions made in that. It was more just an educational meeting to get everybody up to speed. Since then, and within the last hour, 67 met. And one of the things that came out of that meeting that I can share, I think, with you, since it's happened, I'm going to have to get the other stakeholder meeting, other stakeholders informed of this next month, is that they decided to kind of create an ad hoc committee within 67 and the other stakeholders, y'all included, to kind of just have a meeting to get together and say, what do we want to do? We have this money in the bank. It appears it's not enough to get what we wanted to get done. What do we do from here? And so I think from a lot of that conversation, that meeting, there was talk of, again, kind of going down that route of now that the model's been built, maybe we run a few more scenarios just to see if there's a cheaper option and what can we do from here. So if y'all are so inclined, you might think about identifying a board member that would want to sit in on that. There's been no discussion of when that would happen, when it would meet. It's just started. The other MUDs don't even know about it. It's just, you happen to be the next MUD right after them. And so I'm sharing it with you. Probably would be. Yeah. And I think the conversation that they had was to initially just get stakeholders together to maybe identify some different scenarios that we would ask the engineer to come back with a proposal.
I'd like to say that, I found out about this several weeks ago. A citizen was invited me to a meeting, for a small meeting. And until then, I didn't know we contributed $700,000. I've been sitting in this meeting for 2 years. And I find it difficult to understand why, they're so far behind on this project, why was there not?
Where's the 7?
What's that?
That's not 7. Where'd you get that number?
Did we contribute something?
No. 40, 455.
Oh, 450, okay, 457.
Yeah, there you go.
I have to look again.
But maybe you're thinking about were there any expenses prior to March of 2023 on this project?
Well,
So
we contributed sometime, you said, what's it take, sometime in 2022.
Right.
We contributed and, I sat here for the last 2 years and never was there an update, even though they were calling. I did not know. I read it down, I guarantee found it, understood. And I was, really surprised when I found out, and then we kind of, this trustee meeting, Brian Mix is having a meeting, two state, two officials coming, so we kind of kind of crowded in. You know, I found out more. And I make the assumption that 67 active because of, the members probably, expressed concern about this. I'd like some information beyond this. You know, they got a $1 million bond, right?
No, more than that,
Grant.
the grant that's associated with the bond issue.
1 million, 1 million.
Yeah, it's all on the.
1 million,
summary.
right? I'd like to get this in there.
It seems to me the differential between what we have and what is needed and possible. So, I mean, unless we come up with a miraculous idea, I don't see how this is feasible.
I think we need to, listen, I'm gonna listen to you, Mo, in a sense. I got a, what do you think, 2.5-inch document from him, and I'll be honest, in one day, I've been unable to complete that document. And, I got that document, and I think we need the original applications, and, you know, we also need how the, SFPUs were not used to divide the pot. Right, so something was used, and there should be some backup for that. And I think I'd like to get that too. And, so we can.
I'm not as concerned about what was given a few years ago. I'm concerned about what the anticipation and toward access is going to be the future. I mean, there's a reality that I think that the resource is not never some kind of project that may work, but it's a huge differential.
Sounds like finding money is gonna be extremely difficult, if not impossible. And so then it's gonna be, can you come up with some scenarios that maybe were previously considered under the old, model that wasn't as well defined, and sophisticated and robust as the current one, and rerun it, and maybe something that we didn't think worked before works now.
That's why we're opening up to more minds. Opening up to more people, more minds, just the brainstorm is the way to go, because I just. Such a huge. I mean. I didn't realize it was such a big discrepancy.
Do we have those historical documents talking about the different planning alternatives over our branch?
I'd have to look up.
Yeah, I don't know about different alternatives.
Well,
Yeah, I do.
the original concept was to go in and excavate parts of the Fair Branch and Panther Branch to create more capacity. And also lower water surface elevation. There are going to be 2 detention ponds. They're on the west side of Gosling Road, on either side, and one on the college property and one on.
And now they're talking about putting it in the lake.
No.
No, it's still talking about the detention ponds now. The ones that are in the current model are much bigger than what was originally conceived to maximize that. But this was a planning and design project. And unfortunately, by the time that the middle was sent to the Water Development Board, funds were approved, we went through significant double-digit inflation. And the cost was significantly greater than what it was when it was submitted. So there's that aspect, but it was always intended to lower the water surface elevation so that water on research forest.
No, it is a problem. It's a big problem, but
So did anybody ever hold any, we talk about cutting trees down, and the woodland trees, have a lot of significance. And so, if anybody, anybody have any public meetings to talk about that would
We are.
basically strip farm this area?
We weren't talking about strip farm.
Well, I mean, is you gonna take all the trees out?
No, we're not.
Well, you're not.
No. What was, 2 scenarios we run. One was leave the underbrush and all the trees in place, see what model looks like, see what water surface elevation. The other was to go in and underbrush, leave the big trees, but take out some of the smaller ones. Because all the underbrush and the trees create water to back up. So it can remove some of the underbrush. One, it's easier to maintain, and 2, you lower the water surface elevation. And
So Ed, you probably know more about this project than anybody I've talked to in the last few days.
well, our firm, the River Authority managed it, and I've been involved in it for 3 years.
How did it move from the River Authority to?
Well,
It was Bud 67 that submitted the application to the Water Development Board for approval. They got a sponsor. And so Bud 67 had bond authorization. That was a bond. And so to be eligible for the grant, bond issue. The other participants contributed cash, but River Authority offered to be able to, because they own a lot of fee title, like through the area of the branches, to manage the project, and oversee LJA, the models and whatnot, on behalf of the districts. And then there will be periodic reports back once the model is built and run. And I think there was delays, which is why I think we got this dark period.
Yes.
While LJA was constructing this model to be able to bring the work to this. So I think that was my understanding. That's what the dark.
Yeah, the original, the model started in 22, was originally estimated to be done last fall. And we were reporting every other month, kind of that update, but last fall, they were running behind. And then by the end of the year, they had kind of had a draft, but it was not spitting out what people thought it was. So we asked them back, you need to go, let's go refine it and make sure, because it wasn't showing what we thought it was supposed to show. And sure enough, they went back and cleaned it up, did a bunch of checks or whatever on the modeling, and then finally finished the report. They got the results that we thought we should have gotten, probably January or so. And then they finalized the report in March. And then I think we saw it behind the scenes, maybe in April, and then arranged for them to come and present it to the months in June. That was the plan. That was
I think that's I agree with the project out there floating around with no detail.
Was there an original impact study? How many people are impacted from the historical by the situation?
there is some of that, there is some of that. I don't have it memorized.
But we could get that data.
I would say it, but it may not be cost effective. I mean, or affected by it. By this pain for insurance, you know, whatever, I don't know. It doesn't like, if you want to spend $1 million for.
Yeah, the impact is not gonna relate to structure damage. It's gonna relate to the safety of getting emergency vehicles through the.
I get that. So that's an impact that is based on the population that impacted regarding getting the vehicles through that area.
So I just add this, before I became involved with MUDS, I spent 2 years attending the meetings of the Houston Area Garrison Council of Transportation Policy. And before COVID, it was kind of called a call for project. And we basically authorized $705 million federal funding. So if you get federal funding, you have to go to the HCAC, PPC. And the PPC, unless it's changed, I went to someone.
That's for transportation.
Right, but this is a transportation project, because it deals with flooding on a road. That's how you define
HGAC would look at it as a drainage project.
drainage, they would want to translation. I
I
know,
might be able to call a portion of it a drainage,
drainage usually
or excuse me, transportation component.
big pot of money down there if you go after it.
But whether we get state funds or federal funds, it's gonna, I know I'll be long retired.
Yeah, that's right.
Eric may be getting close to retirement.
Yep.
When funds actually show up.
I don't-
So my question is has the model, we've had 2 summers of drought and there's a lot of dead trees. When we remove some of these dead trees and dead underbrush
We're working on that.
and then rerun the model and see how it impacts, I feel like that's a more prudent solution than, you know, it's probably going to take us just as long to find more money as opposed to remove all the dead trees and remove it.
We did not go in our surveys and identify every tree. We put a coefficient in there for a certain density or roughness coefficient.
Mhm.
And so, the number of trees that have died or have fallen because of the hurricane and the drought probably doesn't affect that coefficient significantly enough to change water.
And in areas that you own, like Bear Branch.
Well, we own Bear, Panther, and all,
So you
all the way down to Goblin.
Let me catch up.
So if y'all are interested in partnering up with the group, let me know who'd like to be on the contact and give me a little bit, because the other most don't even know about it yet. I'll be getting do what, no more than two?
Can't have more than two directors
Sure.
per district.
A quorum situation.
I mean, I'm interested and. Go from there. So,
Sounds good?
and data, can you?
Yeah, we'll ask
Application.
LEA, they spearheaded, I think.
We have a copy there.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a state file.
I've got it.
Text file? Can you give me an immediate? Talk to the Z drive, send it, you got. Okay,
I'll get you.
you got it, okay, and then, does that include the calculation, benefit cost calculation?
That would be a separate file and we'll have to look and see. I don't think we've done that.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a cost.
We've done cost estimates, but we haven't done the BC.
Okay, but do you have the cost estimates? Could you just send them? Thank you.
Yep, that was handed to you in June.
It's in that,
It was handed out to you.
that's thick, okay. Again,
No, the actual paper from LJ was handed.
oh,
in your June
that
packet.
5 or 6 page, that's the
It
benefit,
was a big spreadsheet of where the costs were and where they came from.
okay. So give it to me and you.
The board got it. All the stakeholder months got it from LJ in that presentation. It was
Presentation at you,
correct.
okay, I'll have to go back.
So the biggest
Well,
cost,
we can look, we can dig that up too.
Okay, I'll,
the biggest bid item in that is 500,000 cubic yards of material. It's $30 a yard. So there's $15 million.
take a whole.
And what's the going rate of fill?
Question being,
Quality and distance.
Yeah, this
You
is,
dig a hole, it's,
well, this is the channel. You're going.
oh,
into
channel, you're talking about the
5-inch
channel, okay. That's it, that's.
Flatter bottom.
Because
And
yesterday,
this is also the detention pond.
yesterday we were talking about, 370. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, in the detention ponds at Wood, there was talk about maybe having the detention ponds be like a multi-use or facility, like their
yeah.
sports fields and things like that. Those ideas were thrown out there. Which I think the township mentioned that they are in need of more of those facilities around the Woodlands. They're in shortage of it, apparently. So that was noted. There are a few of those around the Woodlands, but that comment was made. We'll proceed accordingly.
So. Back to the channel.
13, as you requested earlier or
Move to
suggested,
Fred, then,
move to defer.
receive service report,
Nothing in open session today.
general manager's report.
Yes, I don't have anything additional. I was gonna kick it to John to update everyone. I will note that the mowing the August mowings have begun across the Woodlands, so we'll be moving your direction, over the next week or so.
That's the last one for the year.
No, I believe there's one in November as well.
Evening. So we are exiting third quarter of our strategic plan of focusing on water conservation. It's still summer. In September, it's very much summer. We'll segue into our fourth quarter and focus on value. We'll continue to push out messaging on water conservation, but we'll put a heavy emphasis on with folks appreciate the value of their water and the water system. You have an outreach calendar there, a number of fall events on that calendar. We'll probably have a few more as we go along with more associations, but events. You can find this calendar on a Google Drive. Okay. And please come out and join us whenever and wherever we're out there. We'd love to have you. Some current marketing materials following that, and then at the bottom of page 2, gave you some stats on our social media platforms that we're currently operating. We're looking to add a couple more, perhaps Instagram and LinkedIn here in the future. We're looking at that. We are now a major sponsor of high school sports online, so that's through Woodlands Online. So over 100,000 folks visit that site to watch high school sports, Woodlands High and College Park each year. And so we'll have ads, readers, commercials, even on those streaming sports, and then some other advertising on a larger site and their social media presence as well. We're excited about that. It's a great way for us to promote ourselves as a community supporter. We reach out to folks that are typically engaged in the community, families, and it's a nice swath of demographics that we can reach with our messaging and that channel. And then Eric just had a note about our director of communications.
Yeah, just give an update on communications and public outreach. Through the PEC, been working with the PR firm to just start building the strategic plan for educating the public on aging infrastructure, among other things. And a couple things that are going to come out of that next month. The PR firm will come to kind of walk us through the website that is being developed. So y'all get to see that for the public, obviously. So that's coming. And then also they have developed criteria to build a community working group. And so, and by criteria, meaning develop criteria on who would be a good demographic overall, group of people in that. The community working group would be utilized to, share ideas, discuss kind of what the community is, what they're hearing from the community, what are some of the messaging we think we need to, maneuver through the campaign. And so the criteria would have one director from each month, representatives from the village associations, other community members, township, Howard Hughes, STRA, WWA would be in there. My guess is that the workload from that, if you will, requirement would be probably no more than a meeting a month. Likely wouldn't meet every month, but probably for a year. So I'm asking for y'all to think about who from the board, one member that would like to get involved in the community working group for the campaign. I don't need to answer that tonight. I'll be asking that next month. See if anyone's think about it if you're interested. And that's all I have. Oh, there is a flyer up here for new, especially for new directors. Association of Water Board Directors is an organization that does conferences and different things for directors. Their next event is a directors 101. It's really good for new directors, so something you might consider, and we can help you get signed up if you want to attend. Yeah, that's all I have.
There you go. Make sure you leave very early. If you can, it's early in the morning, downtown. Another thing I'll say from the trustee report, we're discussing having a hiring independent. We took the vote, we lost on that, we took 64 for that, and that. So recess.
Yes. We do.